Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the People's Show. And this is our legal hour. Certainly want you to tune into the broadcast and want you to participate. Of course, tonight is when we answer all of your legal questions. And we want you to raise those legal questions, okay? So we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, Instagram, and of course we're on X. So I want to thank everybody. Welcome into the house. I want to thank my family, and I call my family. I have two families. One, my original family, which is down in Miami, Florida, and of course my oriented family, which is here in Chicago. I've been here in Chicago going on 39 years. So you do the math. Left Miami in 25, and I've been here for 39 years. You do the math. Yes, that means I'm 63 years of age. All right. So, and I am damn grateful of it. So, and I'm so grateful to have you to be here with me tonight. And joining me in just a few minutes is going to be Cook County Circuit Court Judge Leonard Murray, who is going to be taking all of your questions. Now, remember, the judge cannot give legal advice, but the judge can answer your legal questions and about any particular legal question that you have. So if it's something related in a case that you might be involved with, you still just have to pose a legal question, and he will answer your legal question in general as it relates to the courts. But before we get to that, I want to rant. And I am going to rant. Number one, we are still building the greatest and largest Black independent voting bloc in the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, the state of Illinois. And you'll see it on the screen. I'm asking you to text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385, or you can email me at mark@10by10towin.org. That's 10x10towin.org. mark@10x10towin.org. What we are doing is building and organizing Black people here in the Midwest, here in Chicago, here in Cook County, and in the state of Illinois. Do you realize that Black people in this country, nowhere in this country or in the world do we have an example of organized Black people? Nowhere. We have voted for one particular candidate in, the majority of our votes, and we typically vote democratically because that is the party that we can best identify with and try to get things done. The other party is just extremists, constructionists, and obstructionists, and don't want to solve problems, so we can't work with them. However, we can be a much more powerful force if we would abandon individualism, if we would abandon the ideology of egos and I've got to be in charge and all of that nonsense that is completely counterproductive to the advancement of Black people. And the real answer is that if we want to be powerful people to make powerful changes on behalf of Black communities throughout the diaspora and throughout the country, we can do that by organizing here in Chicago. Now, Chicago, we are positioned in a very I don't want to say unique, but a very uncommon position, because we have a large concentrated sect of Black people in Chicago, Cook County, diaspora, where we can amass a large independent voting bloc that will be transformational, that will transcend politics, transcend legislation, and that we could actually turn politics right side up, that it is much more equitable, much more inclusive, and much more effective at addressing the concerns of Black people. If we can do that here in the Midwest, if we can do that here in Chicago, it would be a dynamic model for the rest of the country. I do realize that there are not a lot of places in the country where we have the concentration of Black people in major metropolitan communities. But one of the things that either we do not recognize here in the Midwest is that our power is not here. Not here where you see my hand. That's not our power. These spread fingers here, represent us individually, represents our organizations, represents our churches, represent our political factions, but there are some gaps. There are some gaps where we could be compromised, and we are compromised. And your hand spread like this is at its weakest point. But your hand like this and like this together are at its strongest point. You have a much stronger force by having those 5 fingers together, and by having our organizations, by having ourselves, by having our communities, our churches, whatever. By having ourselves together, we have the ability to transcend and transform the socio-political and socio-economic stratosphere before we ever cast the ballot. Why? Because our vote is the single most important vote, which is why everybody running for a local office, a county office, a statewide office, a national office cannot win without the difference makers. Even though we are in the minority nationwide, we are the difference between winning and losing. We are the difference between winning and losing. So if they're here, our vote takes them over or brings them down. That is the power that we could have. That is the power that we do have. They recognize it, but it is compromised. It is compromised because they recognize that we're not organized. And when you're not organized, you can easily be manipulated and compromised. You can offer somebody a bowl of beans. You can offer a few people some chickens. You can offer a few people, I don't know, a few contracts. We can be compromised and manipulated. When we take control, organize, and become the dictators of how we participate in the social economic and the social political stratus, then we won't be compromised and we will be respected by those people who are currently in political offices, from your mayors to your council people to your board people, your presidents, your governors, all of those people who don't, in my judgment, respect us as we should be respected. because in a real sense, we are not respecting ourselves as we should be respecting ourselves with the kind of capital that we have in order to do that. I'll be talking more about that. And that is the reason, largely, why it is important that we organize and build collectively the Black independent voting bloc. And we will transform and transcend socio-political and socio-economic conditions as we have never imagined or seen before, and become the model for the rest of the country on how it's done. Stay tuned for that. Make sure you text 10 by 10 to the number 855-909-1385 and join us every Thursday night for the independent voting bloc building meeting every Thursday night from 6:30 until 8. That is what our sole purpose is to maximize and to bring us together so that we are a tightly woven web. There's an old saying that a tightly woven spider web can capture a lion, but you can't do it when you're disconnected. All right. Joining me now is our guest who is with us every week. I want to welcome him to the program. He is the Cook County Circuit Court Judge, Leonard Murray. Welcome to the program. How are you doing, Judge Murray?
Good evening, Mark. How are you? Thanks for inviting me again.
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. Okay, I wanted to get right into this. We were talking, and I was having a conversation with someone, and person had a car accident, didn't have any liability insurance. The other person had insurance, and they exchanged information, and the person said that I said to the woman, I will be happy to pay your deductible. You file your claim against, with your insurance company. I'll be happy to pay the deductible. And the person said, I might not want to file a claim. I want you to just fix my car. And the lady says, you have insurance, file the claim and I'll pay your deductible. And so the question comes that an uninsured motorist who is not supposed to be on the road, driving a vehicle, which is illegal, hits a person who has insurance. The question is if the person files a claim with their insurance company, is the uninsured motorist responsible for 100% of the claim, or is that person responsible for paying the deductible of the person that the damage has been caused to?
Okay. Well, Mark, one fact that was not suggested yet is which side was negligent. And then also in Illinois, we have comparative negligence. So recovery is a function of who's most responsible, meaning more than 50%. If it's a 50-50 deal, then essentially you split your losses, if you will. So, but let's assume that the driver without coverage is 100% liable on this accident.
Yes.
Under Illinois law, insurance policies issued for automobile coverage, it is mandatory that you have uninsured motorist coverage. And that coverage minimally is $25,000 per individual. I'm sorry, we're talking about property damage here, not personal injury, I assume.
Right.
Okay. So then that coverage is different. And let me put my glasses on so I can tell you what it is. I have my notes on this. So we're dealing only with property damage. So
yes.
Where it deals with property damage, then the uninsured motorist coverage must be at least $15,000 with the $250 deductible. So we also didn't suggest um, what the amount of the damage was to the vehicle, um, but it really doesn't matter. Um, the um, the party at fault does
Hmm.
not have the option to tell the party that they injury here meaning property damage, that I'll pay your deductible, you file a claim. It does not have that option. Uh,
Okay.
he- that the party at fault is 100% responsible for putting the injured party, and again, I'm using injured from the standpoint of property damage, making them whole. So putting the vehicle back in the same position it was before the accident. So if the property damage amount, the owner who was not at fault took their vehicle to a repair shop and the bill comes back at $10,000, um, um, and if that bill is paid, then he could look to the party at fault, the negligent party, to make them whole, pay the amount of the claim. Now, if the party at fault opted to uh, rely on their insurance to, excuse me a moment, to cover the cost of the repair, which again is 10,000, uh, they, if it is indeed correct that the party at fault here was not covered, then it would fall under that provision of the statute that requires coverage for uninsured motorists. So this claim would be fully paid except for whatever the deductible is under their policy. So if we assume the deductible is $250, then the insurance company would reimburse. I'm sorry, would not reimburse, would actually direct pay the repair shop 9,900. I'm sorry, $9,750, which is $250 less than the full amount of the claim, because the owner would then be obligated to pay the difference, the 250. Now, it may well be in some shops, they'll take what the insurance pays and not pursue the owner for that deductible. But in theory, at least, that would be how it works. The insurance company would pay $9,750, and then the owner would be responsible for coming up with the difference. Now, what would then happen is that by acceptance of payment of the claim, the insured party then assigns its rights uh, for the against the negligent operator to its insurance company, and then they would go after, could go after the negligent party in under the theory of subrogation, meaning that the claim that belonged to their insured for damage to his property, by their paying that claim, meaning the cost of the repair of the automobile, um, it constitutes an assignment of his or her rights to their insurance company to then attempt to recover their outlay due to the negligence of the driver of the other vehicle. Now, I'm sure that here's one thing that uh, I gotta imagine that most people have never done is, and that is read your insurance policy, uh, because you might be surprised at what is not covered under that policy. I'm sure most of us uh, have secured insurance, homeowner and/or automobile, but have never read the terms of the policy. You might be alarmed to understand what things are not covered under that policy. So that's an important thing to do, to understand what your rights are under your policy and what claims your insurance company is honored. I'm sorry, is obligated to cover. there's a lot of litigation in the equity courts over coverage, meaning that some casualty occurs and the insurance company, uh, more conversant with the terms of its policy than most of its insureds, will initiate a lawsuit to determine whether or not they are liable for the casualty that has occurred under the policy that it issued to its customer. Uh, you might be surprised that there's a lot of litigation in that area. It's really just amazing. You wouldn't imagine that it is, but insurance company, they have a lot of money. They don't like to give it away if they don't have to.
Right. So the insurance company, in the case where you said that the insured, the claim would be filed, the claim would be paid, and then the insurance company goes to the insureds and say, we'd like for you to assign any rights that you have to this claim to
Well,
us.
it's under the policy. It's a term of the policy. The
So
insurance,
it's automatic.
right? So yeah, it's automatic.
Okay. So then at that point, that gives the insurance company the the leeway and the right to go after the responsible party for the full amount.
Right. Yes, including the deductible. If you've ever seen a caption of a claim brought by an insurance company based on its payout under its policy, it will say, for example, Allstate Insurance subrogee Mark Wallace against John Smith, who happened to be the operator of the vehicle involved in the collision, uh, against whom the thought is that they're responsible for the accident.
So let's say that use your figure of $10,000 damage. That the insurance company pays off the claim is $10,000, and the responsible party says, "Wait a minute, I know of a licensed, bonded, certified collision damage repair shop that I would have, um, I would have liked to have them to look at the vehicle and give a quote as to how much it would cost or they would charge to put this the damaged party back whole again." And let's say that facility gave them a quote and says, well, they looked at the itemized repairs, and they came up with a cost that was $2,000 less than what the claimant is claiming. What is that person's responsibility?
You're saying the party at fault?
Yes.
Well, it wouldn't become an issue. Well, let me approach it this way. Assuming that uh, there's litigation over collection of the amount advanced by the insurer for its insured automobile repair, um, then in that case, the negligent party might try to assert that um, uh, the damage sustained was only worth 8,000 rather than 10,000. But they're going to have the burden of proof there, which means that they would have to come forward with experts because the negligent driver is not going to be an expert unless he happened to be in the field of automobile repair. But of course, his statements might likely be received as self-serving because he's trying to save a few bucks. So he would most likely, from a litigation standpoint, need to engage that repair shop, their craftsman, to come in and testify as to how they arrived at a different figure. Now, of course, this person, the negligent party here, uh, is not going to be represented by an insurance company because he was uninsured. So he would then have to put the cost for his litigation defense. Now, of course, he could defend himself pro se, um, and you've heard the expression that a fool has himself for a lawyer. If he thinks that he's capable of defending himself and putting on evidence, crossing witnesses from the plaintiff side of the case, then good luck to him. But yeah, sure, he could assert that in the case itself and see whether or not he might be successful. Now, short of that, it is also possible that without the initiation of litigation, that he could offer the insurer $8,000 versus the 10 that's involved here, and explain what the basis of his offer is. And it may be that the insurance company, weighing its litigation risk and its cost of litigation, might accept the $8,000 rather than going after 10. Now,
Okay.
many of the insurance companies have what they call captive firms, and these are law firms that essentially uh, uh, are they're lawyers in private practice of the law, but essentially they are the law firm, sometimes on the defense side and sometimes on the prosecution side for insurance claims. This subrogated claim uh, that that exist could be litigated by one of these captive firms. And the economic benefit of insurance companies operating in this fashion is that they're not paying hourly rates to lawyers for this defense. Normally, if something they believe they can handle in-house in the captive firm. So, and those lawyers are essentially employees of the captive firm, and they're not billing hourly as they might if they were in a private firm setting. So it's an economic advantage to the insurance companies to put together captive firms such that they lessen their litigation costs.
So, well, let's look at it differently, because I guess it does make it seem a little self-serving to um, after the claim has been paid. But let's say before the claim, or when it happens and they say, look, this is my fault, 100% my fault. I'm prepared to pay for the damage. Please take your car to ABC collision expert and CBS collision expert and get a quote, and I will be happy to cover the cost of the repairs of the one that has the lowest quote. And the person who is the damaged person says, no, I want to take my car over to XYZ collision expert. And they take their car over to XYZ collision expert, and that person decides that they're going to charge them $10,000 and the other two or $5,000 and $6,000. What is the responsibility of the responsible person at that point?
Well, it's an unanswered question at that point. The party at fault cannot dictate to the individuals whose automobile was damaged as a result of their negligence where they go for the repair. They could ask and seek that cooperation, but it is not required. The only way the question of what is um, I guess, the fair value of the cost of the repair would either be by virtue of negotiating with the insurance company, the coverage company, short of litigation, And again, they could take a lesser amount of weighing those issues of, of litigation risk, time, value, and so forth, or they could say no. We paid the claim of 10,000. Uh, we believe it was fair and reasonable, and therefore we want you to pay us $10,000 to make us whole. Um, so the negligent party has absolutely no control and cannot dictate terms to the injured party or its insurance company. But again, they could certainly, uh, um, in a pretrial context, if you will, make an
Hey,
offer
get over here.
of what they're willing to pay, and have a basis for that offer. Or if it results in litigation and they maintain that position, that I don't believe the repair should have cost $10,000. And again, that the burden's on them to demonstrate that.
Okay. That, whoops, my microphone. Okay, there we go. That explains a lot, and I think that a lot of people now have a much better understanding of that, because I think it was a very interesting conversation and an interesting dialogue, even so much as a collision repair company said something very differently. And maybe they were just trying to get the work, because they did say to them, as the responsible party, you have the right to the shooting fireworks, and my dog is
Reacting, huh?
reacting to it, which
Yeah.
is a very strange thing. That when he's in the house, he reacts to it. If he's outside and bombs are going off, he just sits there as though nothing is happening. It is a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe he feels more in control when he's outdoors.
Yes, yeah. On the 4th of July, we were outside in the middle of the field, and there was fireworks just going all around. They have much more sophistic consumer fireworks today than I've ever seen before, and so you can get a very free fireworks right outside your door. So, but at any rate, um, yeah, he just it was very simple. There you go. Just take it easy. Have a seat. Okay. Yeah. Now he's over with me looking for a little comfort. Uh, good. So, but as I was saying, that repair person, which I believe she said is licensed, who said to her, "Look, you don't, uh, you're not required." I think I don't know if he said by law. He said you're not required to accept the highest if, in fact, you have gone to another registered, licensed, and bonded collision repair shop, and that collision repair shop is able to do that exact same work at a lower cost. You're not required to go to the higher cost. But based on what you're telling me, that doesn't appear to be true.
Well, the other part of this is the insurer's position relative to what they will pay, what they think the value of the repair is.
Mm-hmm.
So if the damaged party says, well, the insurance company believes that this damage, this collision, uh, will take uh, $9,000 to repair, but you elect to go to the shop for whatever reason. You believe they're more comfortable. You have experience with them. You think they'll do a better job, and you elect to choose them. Then that difference is going to have to come out of your pocket, because they've determined what they believe the value of the work should be. And
Mm-hmm.
if you elect to go somewhere else, well, I guess probably doesn't matter where you elect to go, because they're only going to provide coverage of $9,000 less your $250 deductible, or in other
Hmm.
words, uh, $8,750. So everything else has got to come out of your pocket.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
Uh,
also the other interesting thing there with subrogation. So again, by virtue of payment of those costs, you subrogate your rights to the insurance company. So the question would be, if they are required to file an action against the party at fault, do they file a case asking for $10,000 or $9,000? You know, their claim is 9,000 because they would also seek the deductible. But I'm not sure they would seek that additional $1,000 that was expended because of how the owner elected to have the car repaired at a different shop.
mhm.
Um, than one that might have done it for the $9,000 that the insurance company suggested it was worth.
Right.
Um, um, so I'm not sure how they would file that case, if they would file it for 10 or if they file it for 9.
Hmm. Well, that is very, very enlightening information, and I think that people, you now know that the information. Certainly, I think that the people who are asking that question, um, and we're not sure of it, listening, you now know what it is. You don't have, as the party who was the responsible party, you don't have the right to dictate. If you were driving as an um, uninsured motorist. Now, you said that in Illinois, you're required to have uninsured motorist insurance.
Well, let me state it a different way. Uh, if a policy is issued to you for automobile coverage, it must contain coverage for uh, those elements, the uninsured motorist coverage, um, also underinsured motorist coverage, and we can talk about what underinsurance is.
Yes.
Uh, um, what is it? And that's both for personal injury and property damage claims. Um, two different clauses, if you will. So that's why at least being knowledgeable about uh, uh, what's in your policy is important. Um, and it was interesting. I had a jury trial that I litigated a number of years ago, and the jury came back against the plaintiff in the case. Um, what I didn't know is that despite that negative verdict, the plaintiff had a claim against its insurer uh, based on insurance because of the loss of the jury trial. So it wasn't the amount of the claim made as such, but there still was some coverage available. And also, there's certain minimum coverages under the various uninsured motorist um, covenants, uh, and it's typically in most ranges it's 15,000 to usually I'm sorry, it's 25 to 50,000 most of the coverages. But you can elect more, but it's not mandatory. So the
Okay.
15 to 50, the 25 to $50,000 are minimum mandatory coverage range.
And what is, you said you spoke about underinsured coverage. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
So, for example, let's assume that the accident is with a covered driver. Um, but their policy limits are such that they have a ceiling of a certain amount, and your claim exceeds that ceiling. So your policy is required to contain an underinsured motorist coverage so that the differential between the party at fault's uh, policy, you, your insurance company makes up the difference in pursuant to its underinsured motorist coverage.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. I want to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to kind of go off legal. I should have talked about this before. You and I both are very connected to the tennis world. Your son Kamal runs the XS Tennis Village on 53rd and State, of which I am a member. That beautiful facility. And if you have not gone there, you should go there. And if you're not a member, join to support that great sports facility. Coco Gauff played in Wimbledon this weekend. It was a very disappointing showing. Um, did you see the match?
I did not.
Um, she did not perform well, and she completely lost. She lost focus. She lost focus. She it, it became painful to watch. Sort of like people said, with the debate, it became painful to watch because she could not figure out her opponent. Both of They were both Americans playing in the 16 rounds in the quarterfinals, and she was playing um, Navarro. I think I forget her first name, Navarro, and Coco was favored to win the match, but Navarro was obviously very focused and lasered in, um, and Coco got down early in the first set and ended up losing the first set 6-4. But was starting to make a comeback in the second set, and just um, just just completely unraveled. I mean, unraveled so much that she was, looking to her coaching box in desperation. She was like, nobody had ever seen um, a professional player looking for help, almost begging for help, uh, for them to tell her what she should do, and that sort of thing. And of course, when you're on the court, you've got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. Your coaches can only do so much for you while you're in the match. So you got to figure it out. It was just very disappointing. Very, very, very painful, thing to watch on Sunday. And of course, she ended up losing 6-4 to 6-3 to Navarro. She walked away very, very, very disappointed, and it was a very disappointing showing of that. I just wondered if you had seen that match.
No, I didn't. There is a Chicago connection to Coco, as I think I mentioned to you earlier in her life. She lived in Chicago.
Hmm.
I think her dad uh, is in the sales business. I don't know what merchandise or product he was involved in selling. But they were in Kamal's program. She was in his
Mhm.
program, earlier in her career. They then
Yeah.
moved, I think, to Atlanta. Um, and I think the thought was that, that's a year-round good weather city. So it gives you more opportunities to perform outdoors, since, all of the major tournaments are outdoor tournaments. So it's the perception is that um, uh, that by being involved in or living in a locale where you have access to playing outdoors year round, it's an advantage.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. Well, that's um, I guess that is true. We only have access to outdoor playing here about 4 or 5 months out of the year, somewhere around there. Um, so yeah, that was very disappointing. Did you watch the NASCAR?
I did not. I had,
Really?
yeah,
I thought about you.
yeah, I was disappointed not getting out there, and then at the time that I thought I would go out, it started to rain.
Hmm.
Uh, so they halted the race, and it wasn't clear at that point whether or not they were going to resume. I wasn't sure where the weather was at that point that would enable them to pick up the race.
Hmm.
And then of course there is um, there is the need to then attempt to put the track in conditions so that it is safe. So I figured by the time all that got done, they would have called the race by the time I would have gotten out there. So um, yeah, so I didn't get out there as I had hoped. But as I understand it, Chicago has a 3-year contract for NASCAR.
Yes,
Um,
they have
yeah,
one
so
more year to determine whether or not
yeah,
they're going to continue this.
yeah. So as I understand it, the crowds were down this year.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have. I mean, the tickets were hefty. Um, if my memory is correct on this, I think those tickets in some instances were like $400. So I don't know if that was for the race plus the entertainment involved or not, but that's a pretty hefty ticket.
That's a pretty hefty ticket for somebody to play. And well, I was in opposition to NASCAR coming here. Certainly, I was in opposition to them shutting down all of the main summer events that took place, and to put this in the place of it. Um, they were supposed to do last year that they were going to um, do sort of a um, an aftermath kind of um, analysis to see what the benefit was. Some thought that, well, this could put Chicago on, I don't know, the national or world stage, but I kind of think that that's already the case when it's been voted as the number one city to visit 6 or 7 years in a row, and it was just voted as the most walkable city in the world. So I don't know how NASCAR is going to give it any more of a lift than it already has. So, um, but I'm still, not a proponent of NASCAR for other reasons as well, but just um, for the economics of it, and then for it taking away all of those summer events that we have been used to enjoying down in that area for this one event that is, it takes what, 2 to 3 weeks to set up, and for that's going to take place in a few hours. I did watch. I did watch the closing. I think I watched the closing hour of it, and I have to admit that it was a little bit thrilling. Not that I even remotely understand, how um, uh, that all works out. I know that there's a point system, but there were a number of cars that ran into the tire walls because either they overshot or they had the wrong tires on. I learned that they're wet slick tires and dry road tires, and all of that, and all that science goes into it. So that was rather interesting to me, of how they have to figure out conditions, road conditions, and paint striping conditions, and all of those factors that go into
Temperature. Yeah.
temperature, all of that, right? And you have the person who is guiding this person who is in this car, who really, uh, they have to drive, and they have to rely on somebody else guiding them through all of this, right? This huge team of people. Um, so, and then they showed Michael Jordan's uh, 2311 facility that's somewhere, I forget where it is, but it is this most opulent, palatial facility, the state of
Yeah.
the art facility.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's a sponsor of the car that Bubba Wallace drives.
exactly. And of course, Bubba Wallace, I think somebody clipped him and ran him off the track or something like that. Um, and Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and the guy who actually clipped Bubba Wallace almost had a chance to win. He did talk about that. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
well, I'm a gearhead, so I've worked on cars most of my life, still do. I am a big fan of NASCAR. I like the Euro style races though that you see in the streets in the European cities.
Yes.
It's a different kind of racing. I think I'd like that a little bit better than NASCAR. But I got a chance last Monday to meet another black driver, a 20-year-old kid from New Jersey, and I got to think of his name. It's LeVar. I got to think of his last name. They had a meet and greet with him at a coffee shop on the west side last Monday morning. Uh, Wonderful young man, and he's 20 years old. He's in NASCAR. That's just phenomenal.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
his
that
his
is.
car was his car was number six.
Okay.
So I don't know how you fared, but just a terrific kid.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember the car. I certainly remember Michael Jordan, and of course the people who were, um, you know, the favorite or leading the race. But I have to admit that I did watch it, and it was, kind of exciting. It was kind of
Yeah,
exciting watching it. Probably because I'm here in Chicago. This is happening in Chicago. Okay, I wasn't a great proponent of it, but I was curious. I was curious about it happening. I'm not sure that I would be a proponent of it. I certainly wouldn't lose a lot of sleep. And I don't know why I am not as much of a gearhead, because when I was a kid, I built all kinds of model. I had a model car collection that was um, out of this world. I mean, my childhood friend and I built model cars, and we just, we they had almost a museum for them. But I guess my my interest sort of waned a little bit on that sort of thing.
yeah. No, I understand, but it was exciting last year. I viewed the race from the corner of Michigan Avenue and and Adams, um,
Okay.
just south of the Art Institute. They came south of Michigan Avenue and they made a turn to go east
Hmm.
alongside the Art Institute. And um, it, we anywhere downtown uh, this weekend, you could hear the roar of those engines. I mean, they're just that loud.
Wow.
Uh, but it I asked the young man who I met last week how many horsepower his car had, and I was surprised. He said it was 600. I thought it would be bigger than that.
Hmm.
And give me a moment, I'll get his name, but just a terrific kid. Uh, hopefully he's going to have a long and great career in that industry. But um, just a really nice young man, and uh, you know, let's see, what's his name? It's not opening up for me. Lavar Scott,
Okay.
Lavar Scott,
Okay.
and he drove his car was it was a Camaro SS, and it was number 6 was on it.
Yeah, one of my former church members' son is a little guy. I bet he was somewhere out there because his mother gets him into, I forget his name right now, but he is racing little, I don't know what they call them,
Oh, go
mini,
karts.
yeah, mini go-karts. So he travels all over the country. He's all
Yeah.
over the place. Jim Rhodes has interviewed him. In fact, he was with what's the retired um, Rusty Wallace. Isn't that his name?
Mhm.
Rusty Wallace.
He's not
Uh,
retired though.
Rusty Wallace is not retired.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Rusty Wallace is retired. I'm thinking about Bubba Wallace. Yeah, Rusty Wallace is retired.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rusty Wallace. And so they did the whole, call the race thing last year because Rusty was here last year, I guess,
Yeah.
calling the start of the race. And
So is that the
that's what it.
kid from Oak Park?
No, he is from. They live out in Barrington, someplace.
Okay.
Live out in Barrington. His name is escaping me.
Yeah.
His grand.
There is a kid that I've heard about, was interviewed on public radio over the winter, and he's been racing locally and is now trying to.
Hey guys, it's Rachel Walcott, and I'm at.
Yeah, his name
You're
is
you're at point
Grayson.
to race internationally. I think one of the races is up in Canada.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, his name is Grayson. That's his name, Grayson.
Okay.
But yeah, very, 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 very interesting. All right. Well, by the way, in these last couple of minutes, last night I had a great, great podcast. Last night we had Justice Cynthia Cobbs on and Justice Carl Walker, and so we did this roundtable on their experience of working on the appellate court, and it was very, very, just interesting to have two people on the appellate court talking about that experience. And the similarities, even though the appellate court, they review every case that comes to the appellate court as opposed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decides on whether or not they're going to actually hear a case. But it was a great experience in listening to those two brilliant minds share how they, even though they are reviewing the exact same materials and the exact same rulings and the exact same evidence, but the interpretations and the variance interpretations could be different, that they would come to a different outcome. But it was also good to say that they had enough respect for each other, that they're very collegiate and they listen to each other's ideas and arguments to make sure that they come up with the right decision, unlike what we're seeing in other parts of our judiciary. So it was very interesting. Very, very, very good conversation.
Yeah, well, I know them both pretty well, and I think they're doing a good job there.
Yeah, yeah, we certainly appreciate it. All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up for us tonight. We'll be back next week with another edition of the People's Show's Legal Hour with County Circuit Court Judge Leonard Murray. Got what's up this week? We've got African Festival coming up pretty soon, right?
Well, that's Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day, yes.
You know, I think it's probably going to be scaled down this year.
Okay.
From what it's been in the past, it's just not the planning's in place, but so we'll see. I think it's going to be presented on the grounds of the DuSable Museum.
Oh, really?
Won't be
They're
on a
changing the
site.
location.
Yeah,
Okay.
it won't be on a site that it's been the last several years, probably more than 10 years. It's been at 51st and Cottage Grove primarily. So.
Yeah. Well, we were in the Juneteenth celebration at the DuSable Museum, and it was just a great experience. It was a really, really great experience, and it was fairly well attended. Quite a few people came through that were even visiting from other cities here. So the Juneteenth, what I enjoyed about the DuSable Museums is that it wasn't just a big party. Yes, there was some celebrating and music and that sort of thing, but there was also some engaging education and activism going on at the same time. So I really congratulate Dr. Kim Delaney for putting on such a great event there.
Yeah, she's very dedicated and committed and smart young woman.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I attended the tribute to Commissioner Dennis Deere yesterday at Callahan. So it was he was a
Oh, yes.
fraternity brother, and there were probably 100 Omega members who came and gave our farewell to him. But he was a super guy. So Congressman Davis was there, Alderman Moore, Alderman Hall. I'm trying to think. Oh, Tara Stamps was there. Of course, he was from the West Side, so big turnout from folks there. But he was a really, really, really good guy. So I mean, his loss is really tragic, and he was so young to leave us.
Yeah. Had he been sick, or was this all of a sudden?
He had a double lung transplant a number of years ago. So I don't know if what occurred now was a function of that situation. If I really don't know. I really don't want to speculate, but there's so many things that can happen.
Yes.
I have someone else, a good friend who's transplant recipient, and I didn't realize that some of the medication that is required to keep the body from rejecting the organs affects bone density. So, and I thought over time, you would be weaned off of the medication, but apparently it may be a lifetime commitment that you make to taking those drugs. So,
I mean, that's part of the problem of some of those medications. While they may help one area, but they erode others. All right. Well, glad to hear. Let me ask you: was Bobby Steele? Was he one of the Omegas?
He was, but he was, but he died as well a few years back. His brother was there and gave a tribute to Commissioner Deere. But yes, he was, and he was a super guy.
I was, he really was. I was at his service. I've never ever seen a place which was an old movie theater that was converted to a church. And you could not appreciate this if you were sitting anywhere in the audience, but from where I was, which was in the very back of the auditorium, and to see the line of Black men that lined the wall all the way down to it was something to take in. It was I've never seen
I was
anything
one
like
of them. I was
it.
one
Okay.
of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And similarly, last night for Commissioner Deere,
Yeah.
we lined the walls of the Callahan's new chapel, their new building.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Speaking of that, we're planning this very important um, press conference that we are trying to ensure that we have at least 200 Black men from all different types of organizations, all walks of life, to call um, to attention and to demand um, uh, significant steps in addressing violence against Black women here in Chicago and the Chicagoland area. And certainly would love to, uh, to get your help of reaching the Omegas to see if we can't get them to participate in this important press conference.
Well, I did forward your email to the Basilis of my chapter, and I asked if he would circulate it to the other local chapters as well. I sent it to Cook County Bar and also the Illinois Judicial Council.
Okay.
So, hopefully, a lot of leadership in the Black community will, acknowledge the call and participate, because I think you're doing it via Zoom for the first meeting.
Yeah, well, the meetings, we meet every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We have one more meeting next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And then the press conference will be on July the 19th in front of the Markham Courthouse, which will be the first hearing date for the for, I guess we would call the alleged defendant at that time. And we want to use that as a backdrop to call attention and to show a real presence of Black men calling and demanding for action in terms of resources from the government to address, this critical issue.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, listen, I certainly appreciate that. And we will be right back here at the same time next Tuesday. And I'm sure we'll talk in between so that we can coordinate another great show. Thank you very much. We always appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for including me.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for me and Cook County Circuit Judge Leonard Murray, who is always so gracious to be here with us every Tuesday night. Remember, get your legal questions together. You can send them to me prior at my email at markjwus@gmail or mark@10by10towin.org. Or you can just type them into the chat during this broadcast, and we will read them off and answer your question. Thank you all so much. We'll see you for the next podcast. Thank you very much. Have a good night.